Well, hey everybody, welcome to the journey. What's up? So glad you're here. And I want to look into the camera, say a big hello to everyone gathering with us online right now. Glad you are along for the ride. And then show some love as well to our Hockessin location. We love you, H-Town. So proud of what God is doing in that area of Journey City. So whether you're online at Hockessin, here in the room at Newark, welcome to you and welcome to Love Week. So over the next 7 days, we are going to be serving outside of our walls. We now have over 800 opportunities for you to serve, make a difference in our region and throughout what we call Journey City, a 30-mile radius around our broadcast location. And I'm very excited about it, already proud of you for the way you're going to make a difference this week. If you're new here, just so you know, we do not serve like this just once a year. We serve people in need all year long. We're always reaching out, making a difference. But once a year, we just all come together and do it at the same time and serve alongside each other. So I want to encourage you to be a part of it. It's also the final weekend of a series that we've been calling Unknown God, which has been all about how to change that, how to get to know God. And we've talked about what that looks like. If you are joining us for the first time or you weren't able to be a part of the first few messages of the series, you can go back and watch those on our YouTube channel or our website. I encourage you to do that. They all kind of work together. And there's one more piece to the series as we wrap it up today. So when I got my first job, which was delivering newspapers, anybody remember newspapers? Remember those? So some of you are going, oh, did you email them to people? No. Walked around with my legs and had a bag full of them and left one at the door of each subscriber. Yes, that's how I worked when I was 9 years old. And I made a fundamental mistake when I took that job. It was my first job. I was young. I didn't really understand all the dynamics of negotiating. And I did not ask what the benefits were that came with that prestigious position. And that's probably for the best because turns out there weren't any. But I didn't care. I just wanted to know the bottom line. I wanted to know how much am I going to get paid, right? I got 9-year-old bills to worry about, keeping me up at night. I got candy to buy. I got big dreams for my life. How much am I going to get paid? But, you know, as I got a little bit older and I had some other jobs and when I went to college and then got out of college, worked in the marketplace for several years. When my wife Susie and I started a family, benefits became more important. You may know what I'm talking about, depending where you are in that process in your life or your career. I wanted to know, you know, you've asked these questions. What does vacation time look like, right? What does health insurance look like? What does the employee discount look like? Come on, students, you know, just all I want to know is how much of a discount do I get so I can buy all the stuff and then find a new job, right? Like, what's that look like? Flexible work hours. How does that work? How do you sign up for use of the company's yacht? I don't know what kind of job you have, so I'm just trying to cast a wide net here. And we start getting more concerned about the benefits. Benefits matter, am I right? Like anybody would say, hey, benefits matter. It's important, not just how much am I going to get paid, but what are the benefits? Well, did you know that all of that stuff used to be referred to as fringe benefits? And the idea was you've got your paycheck, that's the main thing, that's the bottom line, but with a good job, you have benefits, and companies begin to understand, organizations begin to understand, hey, if we want to attract people to our companies, we've got to offer some of these fringe benefits. Well, if you're new to the whole church thing, or especially if you're new to the whole idea of who Jesus is and why he came, let me just give you kind of the headline. Jesus came to make us right with God. You say, well, why does that matter? Well, there is a God who created everything and who is perfect. He's the only being who has ever existed, will ever exist, who is completely perfect. And then there's us, and we're not perfect. You say, well, I think I'm the exception to the rule. Give me 24 hours hanging out with you, okay? So unfiltered, by the way. So we're not perfect, God is. Jesus came to say, hey, I will bridge that gap. You can't get from your imperfection you can't be perfect enough for God. God can't lower his standard or he'd no longer be a God worth worshiping. I'll come bridge that gap and you can be right with God. That's the good news about Jesus. And you may not believe that yet. I'm not here to twist your arm. That's not what this is about. But for all of us who are followers of Jesus, that's what we believe, that when we found Jesus, we found life. We found a life worth living, and we found this relationship with God. We found eternal life forever. That's the main thing. That's the bottom line. If we didn't get anything else but that, it would be worth it. But for all of us who followed Jesus for a little while, we begin to discover that there are fringe benefits to a relationship with God. There's a rich and satisfying life now, not just in heaven someday, but right now. There's peace that God wants to give us that sometimes doesn't make sense because our circumstances say one thing, but our relationship with God says something else. And it's peace and it's purpose and it's joy, and those are the benefits. But that brings up another question, which is, are there benefits that other people are supposed to experience? Watch this. Because I know God. I mean, knowing God benefits me, and I'm so grateful for my relationship with God. It has brought so much to my life that I would not have otherwise experienced. But the question is, does my relationship with God, does knowing God benefit anyone around me? Is it just for me? It's between me and him. We got this thing going on. Or is it supposed to make a difference around me? Is what I experience with God supposed to leak, so to speak, out from my life until it affects the people around me? So during this series, we've talked a lot about the Old Testament, which is one of the hardest parts of the Bible to understand. And yet the Old Testament, as difficult as it can be to read, sometimes gives us the very simplest pictures of what it looks like when God is real in our everyday lives. And I want to give you one of those today as we wrap up the series. And it comes in the form of instructions that God gave his people thousands of years ago. The context is an agricultural society, so everybody's working the land. That's what everybody did during this time. And here's what God says: when you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Now, most of us are not farmers, right? If you are, I find that fascinating. I've always been a little fascinated by it. I do not have any ability to grow anything. This is a common fact. I've talked about that before. So I'm always fascinated by farms. I love driving by them. They just look so picturesque to me. And I think there's just so much about the work ethic that goes into farming. Most of us, not our story. We are financial professionals, we are restaurant servers, we are salespeople, we are VPs, we are house cleaners, we are CEOs, we are stay-at-home parents, we are teachers, we're doing landscaping for the summer, in between semesters of college, whatever the case may be. We're not farmers, but did you know that whatever we do for a living, or whatever we do to earn money, to earn resources, to get a paycheck, matters to God? It matters to God. And he cares about it, and he wants us to be successful. I mean, this is written with the expectation that God's people would succeed. Now, some of them would have a small field, a small plot of land that they work. Some of them would have a very large field. Lots of them would be somewhere in between. Some of them would work their field with their family alone. Others would have hundreds of employees, a major enterprise. But the expectation is, hey, you work hard, there will be a harvest. And all of us expect that, right? You don't go to work for nothing, not long term. Oh, you do? We have several full-time opportunities available at the Journey right now. No, we know we got to provide for our families. We got to take care of our bills. We go to work. We work hard. We expect for there to be a harvest. The harvest was the paycheck when this was written. It was the bottom line. It's not about the benefits. It's about the harvest. They plant. They take care of the fields. They work hard. They wait. In fact, back then they couldn't even decompress with their smartphone at night. It was just work hard, just hope that everything works out, and then eventually they would get paid. I think about all of us who desire to be successful at something. So if you're in the room, Newark, Hockessin, just by a show of hands, do you desire to be successful at something? Just show of hands. Students, your parents are like, dear God, let them raise their hand. I need them to. Online, let us know. Give us a hand raise emoji if you want to be successful at something. There's something you want to succeed at. And here's what I know. Success, that term can get a bad rap sometimes, and we can have wrong motives when it comes to success. But I think many times the only thing wrong with our desire for success is our failure to include God in it. Because I think so often what we do is we compartmentalize. We say, okay, God, you care about the spiritual stuff. I'll take care of the natural stuff. I'll handle this. You handle that. You stay in your lane, God. I'll stay in my lane. And God's like, I own the highway. I don't have a lane. I want to be involved in all of it. We have a passion here to raise up leaders like that who put God first, who don't compartmentalize, and who succeed in ministry and in the marketplace, not either or, who succeed in leading their lives and their families. We call it Journey Leadership Institute. I'm so passionate about it. And if you want to take your leadership to the next level, we have something we call the evening program, kicks off in just a few weeks. It's a 9-month leadership intensive that will help you grow as a leader. And I encourage you, you can start this fall. Because again, I think so often we think, well, God only cares about the spiritual stuff. And we sort of shut God off from the other areas. But the truth is, he cares about our harvest. He cares about our career. He cares about our education. He cares about our paycheck. He cares about our whole life. And the best thing some of us could do as we wrap up this series is make a decision. I'm gonna stop compartmentalizing. I'm gonna stop giving God an hour or two a week. I'm gonna give God 24/7 and see what he can do. I'm gonna welcome him into every area of my life and just see what he can do and stop treating like this is spiritual, this is not spiritual. No, if God's involved, it all becomes spiritual. So then, what does God expect us to do as we do succeed? Whether it's a little success or a lot. Some of us go, well, it's not success until it's a lot. No, I think sometimes God sends us a little success and says, well, what did you think of that? And if we're like, well, that's not really success, he's like, oh, I guess you don't like success. And there's a place in the New Testament where Jesus said, if I give you a little success and you don't treat it with respect and gratitude, I'm gonna assume you don't like success. It's quiet up in here. In Hockessin, they're going crazy right now, but right here, it's a little uptight. So whether we have a little success or a lot, what are we supposed to do once it happens? Once you get the paycheck. I remember my first paycheck as a newspaper delivery professional. What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to live? When we get the first promotion, the position goes from contractor to full-time, or we start a business and it begins to make a profit. What are we supposed to do? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Because God says, don't collect it all. Say what? I mean, the harvest is the paycheck. It's the reward for all of our hard work. So why in the world wouldn't we make sure that we get every part of it we can? Why wouldn't we make sure in our terms that we make every dollar count for ourselves? We get every promotion, every benefit. We just go right to the edges of our lives and just milk it for all it's worth, get everything we can. Well, have you ever noticed that as we human beings become more successful over a long period of time, we sometimes forget why we're doing what we're doing? And we lose sight of what really matters. It's an age-old story, happens all the time. We forget who has blessed us to be successful and why he has blessed us to be successful. And when we reach the top of our game, so often what happens is we end up re-examining our lives and realizing, oh man, in all my pushing and striving to get everything I possibly could, I missed some people and some priorities along the way. And sadly, too often we do that way too late to do very much about it. And we realize I didn't notice those people and those priorities, what God really intended, because they were on the fringes. If they'd been right there in the middle of my field, I would have noticed them. I noticed the promotions, I noticed the opportunities, and I noticed the raises, and I noticed the way that I could do more and get more and earn more and be more. But I didn't notice the people and the priorities on the fringes, along the edges of the field, and I didn't leave any part of my life for them. I just got everything I could for myself, and God says, that's not how I want you to live. So don't collect it all. And then he continues, because some of the farmers were going, oh, that's just for us. That's not fair. God says, no, it's for everybody. It's the same with your grape crop. So you get the idea. It's the same, whatever your career is, whatever your part-time or full-time job is, whatever that is, do not strip every last bunch of grapes from the vines, and do not pick up the grapes that fall to the ground. Now, anybody else in a moment of honesty, that's hard to read. It sounds inefficient. My personality, I'm like, that's not efficient. I've got a system for that. Like, I can make that more efficient, God. I mean, put yourself in the position of the people this is written to. You have a field, you've been working hard on it for many years, and things have been going well. Now you're ready to have maybe the best harvest you've ever had, and God says, okay, do a less than thorough job. Don't collect it all, leave some behind. You've got this vineyard you've been working on all season. The grapes are ready, and God tells you, all right, don't go back and pick up the ones that got missed. Don't go back and collect the ones that were overlooked on the first pass. Can I just tell you my personality? I want to do a second pass and a third pass, and when everybody goes to bed, I'm out there going, there's got to be one more grape. Anybody else just wired that way? Come on, type A's. Like, there's got to be one more grape out here. And can I just tell you, if I run the vineyard and I got some employees and they leave some grapes on the ground, we going to have words. I'm just telling you right now, like, do you not like your job? What's the problem here? Just being honest. God says, if you want to know me, maybe you just want to collect grapes for the rest of your life and then find out when you die it didn't matter. Just keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to know me, if you want to know the God who gave you the capacity for success and who is for your success, you're not going to find me in the middle of your field. You're going to find me on the fringes, in the spaces you create where you don't use up everything you've been given for yourself. That's where you'll find me. How do we make sure that on our spiritual journey, our path and God's path cross as often as possible? Here's how. We leave something behind. So instead of maxing out our lives for ourselves, we use what we've been given. We use our harvest. We use our success to benefit someone else. And by the way, not just anyone else. God goes on and he gets very clear. Here's who I want you to leave the fringes of your field for. Don't just leave it for your kids. That's a wise thing, but that's another thing for another time. No, I want you to be sure that you leave the edges of your field and the grapes that didn't get collected on the first pass for the poor and the foreigners living among you. God says there's two specific groups of people that I really care deeply about. I care about people who don't have the resources you have, who are physically poor, who need food to eat, who need shelter, who need a place, who are suffering from disease or addiction, and it's destroyed their ability to take care of their lives. I want you to leave some of your life behind for them, and then I want you to also leave the edges of your field for the people living around you who don't have the community you have. Maybe they're physically poor, but maybe they're not, but they are certainly spiritually poor and relationally poor. They're foreigners. They may have it all. There may be everything on the outside that they could ever want, but inside they're empty. And God says, that's who I want to benefit from your success as my people. I want you to leave some behind for them. And some of us, if we ask why, which God knew we would ask why, there's always someone who would ask why. I'd be that someone. When I was a kid, I was always asking why. Anybody else always asking your parents, why? Why do I have to do that? Why? And were you ever frustrated when your parents said, because I said so? They got it from God. Here's why. I'm God. You're not. What's up now? Any other questions? God says, here's why I want you to leave something behind. Because I'm the Lord your God. Listen, I'm the reason you have a field in the first place. So I got this job. I earned this job. I earned this. I worked hard, and now, who gave you the capacity to do that? Who gave me the ability to earn and to succeed and to progress? God says, I am the Lord your God. And if you want to find me in your everyday life, if you want to know me better, it looks like this. Intentionally be inefficient. Intentionally set aside some of your time and your money and your giftedness and what you have to offer and the rewards of your hard work and your success to benefit people who are near you and need you, who are physically poor, who are spiritually and relationally poor. I want you to leave something behind. Last year, as a community of faith, we ran toward the needs in our region as COVID shut down the world, and you did amazing things, Journey. We found out that the biggest consistent need in our region was access to healthy food on a regular basis. And so we just decided we're gonna make a dent in that problem, in that issue. And we started giving food away. And we took the first part of everything we gave financially as a church, and we dedicated it to giving away, which we do all the time. And we just got focused and said, let's make food a priority. And there was a woman who came to one of those food distribution events who was in a season of real need. And she received that package of food, and as small as it may seem, it made a difference, and it also made an impact. Because as she began gathering here, and God began to work in her life, and she got back on her feet after that rough season, and she started bringing food. 3 or 4 times now she's brought food and said, hey, I have enough. Would you give this away to someone in need? Because when you know God has provided for you, that's what you want to do, right? You want to give back. I mean, it's just you don't have to be spiritually mature. In fact, sometimes when we're spiritually mature, we lose that. But when you're just sort of, wow, God, I needed that, and you were right there. You are faithful. God, thank you. I want to be generous back. That's our response at first. But the problem is, for some of us, maybe it's been so long since we had a desperate need that we've lost some of our gratitude for God's faithfulness. And we started feeling like, I can pretty much make this field work on my own. I don't really need, it's been working fine for 4 years or 9 years or whatever the case may be. And I feel you, I've been there. And by the way, if you're like, man, this is strong, I had to eat it before I fed it to you, if you know what I mean. I had to prepare it and go, oh God, I got some heart searching to do. Because I remember when Susie, my wife, and I first started the church, we'd been in the marketplace and we were doing well, and we started the church, and just a significant difference in compensation. And we went through a really hard season, and 2 years into starting the church, we found out our son needed therapy that insurance wouldn't cover, and it was $90 an hour. And we were like, how in the world? And we were trying to figure out how to buy groceries, pay the mortgage, how in the world are we gonna afford this? And miracle after miracle. I mean, we had friends one night who stopped by and said, hey, we just wanna swing by, and they even brought food, which was like, oh yeah, absolutely, if you're bringing food, come on. And we ate together, and then they handed us the card, and inside there was a check for $3,000. 35 hours of therapy for our son. I had one of our overseers, so we have pastors outside the Journey who are really pastors to me and my family, and one of them, we didn't ask, hadn't shared all the details. They knew in general, but one day there was a card in our mailbox and a check for $3,000. 35 hours of therapy for our son. College student at UD heard about our family and had influence in our sorority. They decided to adopt our family. They raised $7,000 for therapy for our son. Can I just tell you, we were just so grateful to God because there was no other, we knew it was God. It wasn't like we worked hard for these unexpected blessings. No, we knew it was God. But what happens? Time passes. Maybe we don't have that day-to-day crisis, and we kind of start to get a little complacent. Can we just own that? And we forget the faithfulness of God. Or maybe some of us are going through a season right now, and all we can see is our own needs to the point that we've gotten tunnel vision and we've forgotten about the needs of anyone else. And I've been there too. And we start thinking, God, you should give us success just for us. Can I tell you, God is not that small-minded. And I don't think we actually want him to be. I think we want a big God, and that big God is looking for people who understand the purpose of success. There's nothing wrong with success. It's not a bad word. God celebrates it. But the purpose of success is not just to raise our standard of living. It's to raise our standard of giving. Because God cares about the poor, the physically poor, the spiritually poor, the relationally poor. And so he tells us, listen, I want you to work hard. And by the way, just so you know, this is not God telling us not to work hard, just the opposite. The only way there'll be a harvest is if we work hard. We have to play our part, but God says, I want you to work hard, and then I want you to know that if you work hard and you put me first, I will take care of you. But there are going to be some benefits that accumulate along the way, and you need to decide whether those are primarily for you, and I gave them to you, or if I'm primarily trying to get them through you to a world that's in need. And so God says, there are supposed to be some benefits. When we leave something behind, so we don't leave someone behind. Because possessions are amazing, they're gifts from God. But they'll never be more important than people in God's eyes. And God says, I want you to live this way. And by the way, when you look at it, when you study it out, when God's people live this way, throughout history, when God's people put him first and used what they had to benefit others, he blessed them. How did he bless them? He gave them more harvests and more fields and more success, because God is not against that. He's for that. But when they forgot who all that came from, and it's sad, you can look at it. God would provide, people would be grateful, and then they'd start to get complacent, go, oh, we created this, or they'd start to worship other gods, they'd start to worship their possessions, and every time that happened, eventually God took their success away. Why? Because he's cruel? No, because a wise God cares too much about a hurting world to continue to pour his best into a pipe that's capped on the other end. And he's looking for people who understand that knowing God changes the way we live. We are no longer collectors. We have become contributors. We are no longer consumers. We have become distributors. We are no longer ponds that accumulate. We are rivers that flow. And everything that God sends to us, we are always looking for ways for it to get through us to those who are near us and need us. We know why we have this field, where it came from, and what we're supposed to do with it. And can I tell you, so often we find God there in the intentional places we create, where we stop caring about what we care about and we start caring about what God cares about, trusting that if we care about what God cares about, he'll continue to care about what we care about. And we give our lives over to God. It happens when we invest in people who don't know Jesus yet and invite them to experience God with us. And I'm praying all of us will do that in the coming weeks. Why? Because we don't want to just be consumers of God for ourselves. We don't want to just come and go, oh, I'm so thankful I have this. I hope nobody else finds about it. It gets hard to find a parking spot again. Oh. Online, you're like, don't have that problem. Thank you very much. No, we want to give it away. We want to give him away. Happens when we lead J groups and create space for people to connect. Happens when we're kind to a neighbor. Happens when we serve in unseen ways. It happens when we give our first, when we're faithful to God and in that covenant relationship with him. And we give that to God, and it's going to happen this week during Love Week. As we serve our community, throughout Journey City, one humble act of serving at a time, we're going to reach people who feel like they have no voice and no hope. And we're going to let our good works shine so that people praise our Father in heaven. So will you be a part of it? If you know God, this is a great way to show it. And if you don't know God, come along and serve with us anyway. You may find him in the process. Because after all, if you help the poor, you are lending to the Lord, and he's good for it. He will repay you. So this week, Journey, here's what we're gonna do. We'll leave something behind so we don't leave someone behind. We'll take some of our physical energy and our time. It feels so precious to us. I know it feels like we can't part with it. So busy. Anybody else get there? I'm so busy. Heard one time years ago, the follower of Jesus said, I am so busy, I don't have time today not to pray. I love that philosophy. So we're gonna take some of our time and our energy and our ability, and we're gonna intentionally be what seems like inefficient with it. After you serve this week, you won't get a paycheck. Nobody will check a box. But the benefits are immeasurable. Because knowing God isn't just about knowing more information about him. Knowing God is about having our lives transformed by Jesus and then following Jesus into the fringes of our fields. That's where he hangs out. He hangs out with the poor and the broken and the searching and the marginalized, the last, the least, and the alone. And now that we know God, for all of us who do, this is how we make him known, not just by what we earn and achieve, but by what we leave. Some of us, let's be honest, we've been harvesting all the way to the edges of our fields. We've been worried, we've been anxious. We're counting every grape. We're like, okay, I'm gonna get every grape. I'm just gonna make sure, I'm just gonna control this whole process, and we've edged God out. Some of us, we have been resenting the people who've been getting in our way, not realizing they are the people God has sent our way. And I'm just telling you, the day will come if you live that way long enough when you will regret the space you didn't create. But if you'll give the fringes of your field, the edges of your life away to God for the benefit of others, if you'll leave something behind so you don't leave someone behind, God will provide everything you need. And if you want to know where we see this best, it's in Jesus, who came and gave away his life for us. He humbled himself, died on a cross so that we could know God. All of the benefits that came with being the Son of God, he gladly gave away. And thousands of years after those verses were written about leaving something behind, one of the early followers of Jesus wrote this to some of the first Christians, the first people who believed that Jesus had died for them and risen again. He said, hey, if you're gonna follow Jesus, here's what it looks like. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. So what is that attitude? Well, now we know. Here's the attitude. Don't look out only for your own field. Don't look out only for your own career. Don't look out only for your own earnings, for your own harvest, for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And we know who the others are, especially now. It's people who don't have what we have, physically, spiritually, relationally. And God says, this is what life looks like. I'm gonna give you a field. I'm gonna give you success. Some of us have a little, some of us have a medium amount, some of us have a lot. I want you to live your life for the benefit of others. It's that simple. And God says, I'll show you what I mean. Here's my son. He's gonna live it out for you. He's gonna come, and instead of claiming all the benefits, he's gonna give them away for you. And then I want you to live that way. I want you to live this way. You'll leave something behind so you don't leave someone behind. And when you do, I'm gonna provide for you. When you live as if your success, whether it's a lot or a little, is all about the benefits, but not the benefits that just you receive, the benefits the world around you experiences because you know God, then along the way, you're gonna find me on the fringes. And if that hits home for you today, and this is important, you intend to do something about it this week, I want you just to lift your hand. If you're in the room, New Ark, Hockessin, come on, lift it high. If you'd say, this hits home, I'm gonna do something about it this week. I'm motivated, I'm challenged. If you're online, let us know. I'm in. I'm not just gonna consume this, I'm gonna do something about it to honor God, to benefit someone else. Let's pray. Jesus, we honor you. We love you. God, we pause right now and thank you for our field. It may not be everything we thought it would be. It may be struggling right now. The harvest may seem like it's up in the air, but you gave us life. God, you don't owe us anything. You've already given more than we could ever afford to repay when you gave us your son, Jesus. Everything that you give us in addition to that is a fringe benefit. And now we know, God, that it's not just for us. We get to enjoy it and thank you for it, but it's supposed to flow through us. And we pray you'd help us as a community of faith. Some of us are very successful. And maybe we don't want people to know that because there's like a stigma attached to it. There's no stigma attached to it. You celebrate our success when it has purpose. Some of us are struggling, God, and we're almost kind of negotiating with you. We're like, well, I'll be generous, God, when you increase my field. And God's like, no. God, you're saying, I'll call the shots here because I'm the Lord your God. Be faithful to me, trust me to provide. God, give us the courage to obey you and to find you on the fringes. In Jesus' name, as we serve this week, let it be for you. Let it make a difference. As you let God speak to your heart for a moment more, some of you here today or watching online right now in Hockessin, wherever you are, all of our locations, we're gonna serve together this week, and you are welcome to join us in that, whether you believe in Jesus yet or not. You don't have to believe in Jesus to serve with us. Just come along. The more the merrier. But for some of you today, you may not have a real relationship with God for yourself yet, and you're wondering, what does that look like? Well, I want you to know that you were important enough to God that he gave everything for you. He gave his son, Jesus Christ. That is the good news. So that when you put your faith in Jesus, when you look to him, and you believe in your heart that he is who he said he was, that he died and rose again, and you declare that with your mouth, you become a child of God. You belong to God. And you have life forever. And you have life here and now. And if you want that today, this is your moment. I'm gonna lead us in prayer again, and this is your opportunity. Right where you are, whisper out a prayer of faith, something like this. Come on, if that's you, pray with faith in your heart. Jesus, today I believe in you. Now I wanna know God. And so Jesus, I look to you with faith in my heart, and I declare you are the Son of God, and you are leader and Lord of my life. From this moment on, through your death, I'm forgiven. Through your resurrection, I'm alive. I'm gonna follow you. And if that's you, while everyone around you stays focused on God, if you would say, that's my prayer. If you're in one of our physical rooms, I want you just to lift your hand, just hold it up high. Yeah, just boldly declaring, my faith is in Jesus today. My trust is in him. If you're watching online, make sure you let us know. Type the word faith in the comments, whatever platform you're on. And then everybody, will you help me? Come on, let's celebrate the goodness of our God. Give him